Are we all ready? Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Catskills. Our minister is Reverend Bob Janice Dillon, over there. And I'm Kathy Atwell, the worship assistant for this morning. We're excited to have attendees both in person, lots and lots, in the sanctuary as well as via Zoom. A big welcome to everyone wherever you're attending. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religious faith that carries no creed and welcomes all seekers. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in life's journey, you are welcome here. We are guided by a set of principles and written sources that encompass the many ways we come to know and understand the world, the universe, and the divine. Our principles are important to us at UU Catskills, and we live our values on a daily basis. We affirm that Black Lives Matter. We are a welcoming congregation for the LGBTQ community. We are a congressional affiliate of the Ulster Immigrant Defense Network, and we are an active voice in the effort to address climate change. Community circles connect members with others that live in their local community. There are 9 circles in different areas who meet monthly in person or online through Zoom. If you'd like to get in touch with the circle in your area, please contact the office administrator. Thank you to everyone who is assisting in today's service. Our hybrid services are made possible by our technical team. Bruce Wildy, who is here in the sanctuary, provides for our live streaming from the pulpit. Our Zoom host this week is Kathy Kastner, and our usher is Jenny Giddy. After the service, for those attending via Zoom, please stay for our breakout rooms for a virtual coffee break. If you are a visitor and would like to be added to our mailing list, you can put your name and email address in the chat box area in Zoom, or if you're here in the sanctuary, let one of our membership committee people know. We encourage you to read the March and the upcoming new April newsletter that is distributed through our email list. You can always visit our website, uucatskills.org, to find contact information if you'd like to be added to the mailing list or to find the latest newsletter. So upcoming events for this coming week or for the month are in your newsletter, but there are several coming up this week. Today, Sunday, the 27th, the Grief Support Group at 7 p.m. Monday, March 28th, Monday Night Bible and Other Books. This 3-month series on the last Monday of the month by Reverend Bob at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Monday also, the 10th annual film and discussion series, Land in Black Hands, will be at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Thursday, Bedtime Stories and More. Thursday also, UU 101, to learn about the Unitarian Universalism and our congregation at 7 p.m. And then next Sunday after the service, plan on staying because we're having a pop-up fundraiser after the service. So now I'm going to take a little from the script and introduce our president, Mark Howenstein, who will talk to you about our pledge, where the status of our pledges.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you. It's good to be here in this space. This is a time of equinox, as all of you know, and it's a time of harmony and balance. And this is a time that we here at the UU balance our books, set our budget for next year, and harmonize our ideals with our reality, harmonize what we practice with what we preach. Did you know that nearly 90% of our budget, especially in the last couple of years, is based on our pledge, so our operating budget? And that's especially true here during COVID, because during COVID, much of our fundraising activities have been scratched. We will have one, as you just heard, next week, and I hope you can all come to that. By pledging, we commit ourselves to the life and the vitality of our organization, the UUCC, and especially to our attempt to bring love, justice, and peace into the world. The statistics so far are that we have collected $67,000 of our pledge. We're hoping to collect up to $137,000, which would balance our budget for next year, our proposed budget. We've taken so far about half of the pledges, a little less than half of the pledges, 85 member units, and we've collected 39 pledges so far. Please pledge as generously as you can, as timely as you can. We still have 10 more days, I think, in the pledge or so. April 5th is the end of the pledge drive. And know that all pledges are welcome. Every pledge is fully appreciated and will be used for the benefit of our congregation, for the well-being of our institution. After this service, Karma Haas, our treasurer, and Lois Slade, our assistant treasurer, will be, I think, over here in the kitchen to help people with forms to fill out if you're ready to pledge, or to talk to them a little bit about the pledge. And they will also be here next Sunday as well at the flea market, so which is kind of at the 24th hour. So if you can do it today or then, it would be very helpful because it helps us to, propose our budget and to prepare for next year as best we can. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mark. Our prelude this morning is titled Pomp Canelli by Alan Pierre Padrell, performed by our music director, Catherine Catabani.
Good morning. Welcome. Thank you, Kathy, and I welcome you again to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Catskills. It is so good to see everybody here, and I know there are people joining online, and to be with each and every one of you is such a pleasure. Thank you for coming here. And being here. There are many things you could do with your Sunday morning, and it means a lot that you're here in this gathered community in search of meaning and in embodying the beloved community. As we worship together in the sanctuary, actually, the children, I want to say, are gathering together in the farmhouse, which is next door for religious exploration. And today's session is the Great Meddler. They will prepare for their annual celebration of cats and dogs and learn why we celebrate them during the month of April. So I'm sort of missing out on that, but we're here. We're going to make the best of it. It's going to be great. Don't worry. It's so good to be together and so good to celebrate here on the cusp in the midst of spring, as spring is on the way, and to be here together. As we do each Sunday here, we begin by lighting our chalice, and we'll recite our chalice lighting words, which are on your order of service or on your screen. We light this chalice in grateful, loving community. Even in the darkest of times, may its flame light paths to courage, justice, and hope. And I also invite you to read the words of affirmation. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love to all living beings. May we know once again that we are not isolated but connected in wonder and joy to mystery and miracle in this universe, in this community, and in each other. Every Sunday, this congregation gathers in one form or another, as best we can, as far as we are able, online or in person, masked as to protect one another. Just as we are, we gather. And as we do gather each Sunday, as we have for many years, it's a kind of declaration and a promise. Human beings gather for all sorts of reasons. Armies gather for war. Armies of peace gather for protest or to resist oppression. Workplaces gather to accomplish the daily tasks. Giant crowds sometimes gather for entertainment. Families gather at times of celebration as well as times of sorrow. And here at this Unitarian Universalist congregation, we gather each Sunday with various theologies and none, with no single doctrine of ultimate truth, but what we do share is a kind of declaration and a kind of promise. And the declaration, which we don't always put into words, put simply, is that it is good to be together. We are declaring that we share a common humanity, that despite all our wonderful differences, we are also one people sharing one earth. We are declaring that there is something worthwhile in getting to know each other and sharing our gifts and our time to common purpose. And what is the promise that we make by gathering together? Something about hope, something about meaning. It's a promise that if you're going through the toughest of times today, there is more love out there and more life out there. Just wait, and we will wait with you in the toughest of times. It's a promise that if you're looking for justice today, that justice is not a pipe dream. It is felt in our bones and is as necessary as our breathing, and we are marching toward it together. It's a promise that in this life of ours, lived in the privacy of our own hearts and consciences, as well as shared together in community, this life of ours really is meaningful and precious beyond what words can say. This is the promise that is felt in the opening hymn and the silence of meditation. This is the promise. This is why we gather every Sunday however we can, and together we embody the truth of meaningful living. May it be so. Amen. So in that spirit, let's sing that opening hymn. It's number 349 today. We gather together. 349. So each Sunday, we have, I forgot to mention, a special welcome to visitors today. I know we've had quite a few visitors in the more recent weeks, and we're so grateful. Thank you for coming and checking us out, and we're so grateful to have you with us. And each week, what we have a heart story, a story of what I hope is emotional import and meaningfulness, and we introduce it with what's called the Wonder Box, because we are people of wonder that wonder about our universe, and we wonder what's in the Wonder Box. You didn't see that. But would anyone like to? I'm not a magician, so I can reveal my tricks. Would anyone like to open the Wonder Box today on behalf of the gathered company? Bob.
I wonder what's in this Which is harder, the rock or the bread?
The rock or the bread? That's a good question. Well, I didn't cook the bread, so it's pretty soft. So I actually was thinking of two stories here today with generosity. And one is a story that I've heard some longtime Unitarian Universalists said probably needs to be retired because it's told so often. And I'm not going to tell that one, but you may have heard of the story of Stone Soup. And if you haven't, it's a wonderful story. I recommend it to you. But there's also another story which comes from one of the many religious traditions we celebrate, which is the Loaves and Fishes story, which you've probably also heard a number of times. And it occurs to me that from a certain point of view, they might be said to be the same story. This may be, for some Christian traditions, a little bit heretical, but it's sort of, I think of it as a midrash or a retelling of the Christian story, because there's someone, my informant, and I can't tell you who she is, but she says that it maybe didn't happen quite like it says in the gospel. Like if you've read this story, it's a short story. There's many different versions of it in the books of Luke and Mark and Matthew and John as well. It's one of the ones that's repeated in all four. And there's a bunch of loaves and fishes. The number kind of varies, but they only have a few, and there are thousands of people. And then a miracle happens, and there's enough food. And it's implied that God provides the miracle and provides enough food for everyone. And I like that story. But my informant says that's not quite all that happened in that time. And what happened, she says, at the beginning, it was quite like that they were all gathered together in thousands, following this interesting speaker and teacher and healer. And there were thousands of them gathered on that hillside. And they got hungry, and they didn't have enough to eat. So that's exactly like the story. And many of them were poor, so they couldn't just go to the nearest, Denny's and all chip in and have a meal. It wasn't going to work. But what happened, and I know this because I know people, especially people who have limited means, figure out a way to eat together. It's a big thing. So what happened is somebody said, well, they counted and they had like 5 loaves and 7 fishes, like not enough food for thousands of people. And somebody said, well, I've got some parsley, because you've always got some parsley, right? Some of you got parsley, right? And they said, we'll bring some parsley, and they brought that in. And somebody else said, well, I've got some leftover ground meal that I was actually going to share with the animals because there was only a little left, but I'll bring it in and we can make the most of it. And so that happened throughout, and everybody had things that they brought. For instance, what have you got lying around your kitchen or maybe in your bag today? What would you contribute? Potatoes? Oh, that'd be great. What's that? Carrots? Wow. Hummus? Wow. Okay, so they had, as it happened, coincidentally, potatoes and carrots and hummus, all of which were plentiful in the region at the time. Apples, cabbage. And so all of these people contributed, and it felt really meager. Each of them thought, well, this isn't going to make any difference. This is a tiny little amount. What can we do with this? This is just in the corner of my kitchen. And like I say, these were not wealthy people. But then there was a couple of wealthy families passing by, and they said, wow, this is amazing. We don't mean to, they noticed something's happening, and you guys having a meal? And they said, yeah, we're trying to, but we're not sure if we're enough. And they said, well, can we take part? And they contributed quite a bit, actually, very generously. And before you know it, there on that hillside, there was enough food to feed everyone. Now, like I say, I can't tell you who my informant is because a preacher never reveals his tricks. But that's said to be, and we don't know what really happened on that day, But I know I don't know if that story happened in Galilee, but I know that that story has been repeated any number of times, that people chip in and they don't know if there's going to be enough. And at the beginning, they're not sure if there's going to be enough. And by the end, there is plenty of the bread of life, plenty of sustenance for everyone. And even more than that, which is what the story is really about on any level that you do it, there's the sense of community and the sense of being together and having enough and knowing that when they're together. So that's our heart story here today. And may it invite us into the spirit of wonder. So now we have a reading, which is kind of a different take on that theme of people contributing. It's one of my favorite readings about congregational life, written by Rudy Nemser. Kathy's going to read it first.
So the poem's titled, Long Haul People. You find them in churches, when you're lucky. Other places too, though I mostly only know the ecclesiastical varieties, long haul people, upon whose shoulders and pocketbooks and casseroles and daylight nighttime hours a church is built and maintained after the brass is tarnished and the cushions need restitching. They pay their pledges full and on time, even when the music's modern. Support each canvas, though the servants aren't always short. Mow lawns, come to suppers, teach Sunday school when there's no one else and they'll miss the service. Ask what they think of the minister, or the plans for the kitchen renovation, or the choral anthem, or the Christmas pageant, or the color of the bathroom paint. They'll reply, individuals and fashions arrive and pass. The church, their church, will be here steady and hale for a long, long time. It will, for long haul people, bless a church with a very special blessing.
By the way, at the end of April, we'll be having our membership Sunday, so we'll also celebrate people who are coming more recently to this service. But in celebration of long haul people, thank you for all you give to this congregation. And now is a time in our service where we have joys and sorrows, where if you wish, you're very welcome to share a moment in something that's happening in your life or the life of those you love or in the world. Briefly, because there's lots of us, and we just carry them on our collective heart, and we're in the spirit of community. So if you're here in person, if you would raise your hand, and we'll bring sorrows and joys and concerns that are on our hearts this hour. And even if they are unspoken, they are very much a part of this occasion, and we are keeping one another in our prayers, in our best energies, and in our collective heart, as I say, in our sphere of empathy. Spirit of life and love, we acknowledge the troubles of life, and we sit beside those that mourn and wish for comfort. We keep our hearts with those who are struggling with health concerns and pray for recovery and healing. We give our hearts to those who are facing injustice and oppression, and we resolve again that through our efforts this world can be better. And in the midst of all these troubles, we are grateful. Grateful for this messy, chaotic, glorious, beautiful life. Grateful for our own personality and whatever gifts and talents we have that we resolve to use for the good. Grateful of other people who remind us of just how wonderful it is to be a human being amongst other human beings. Despite suffering, and because of it, we lift up our hearts to live abundantly. Our feet humble on the earth, our words creating peace, our actions bringing kindness. What a blessing, what an opportunity, what a feast it is to be alive. Amen. So now we'll enter into a personal period of prayer. We'll begin by singing the meditative hymn 123, Spirit of Life, which some of you will know. Catherine will just play the intro, and then we'll sing it through twice. You can remain seated if you like, because it's a quiet one. And then we'll have a time of silence. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be free from suffering. Now we have our... Oh.
I can. So, it's just first, and then
No, you read first.
Sorry. The half-plate donation today will be shared with Seed Song Farm Low Income and Immigrant Camper Fund. This program enables children from low-income and immigrant families to attend the year-round farm camp and day programs. $3,500 will send a child to camp for the whole summer. Seed Song Farm is a small farm in Kingston that provides community-supported agricultural educational programs and an on-site farm store and year-long festivities. For our online viewers, you can give in 3 ways as shown on your screen. At our website, by texting the number given, or mailing your check to our address in Kingston. In the sanctuary, baskets will be passed. Our offering and offertory is Prelude Cubano by Amadeo Rogan Llegadas.
So there's a story that has left a mark on me, and it's a story that takes place among the Bedouin. As you may know, Bedouin, sometimes often a nomadic people who live in the Arabian sands. I believe they're in North Africa as well, correct? And this was told by a British anthropologist, Wilfred Thesiger, and he was living amongst them and studying the Bedouin people. And one time, Wilfred was at a gathering, a dinner where people were gathered, and there was a sort of a hush in the room. You could tell when an important personage walked in. He had a sense that there was something significant was happening. And all of the people in that Bedouin community turned And the British explorers expected to see someone perhaps in all their refinery, some sort of chieftain. But the old man who walked in seemed by all appearances to be nothing more than an indigent beggar. Even by the modest sartorial standards of the Bedouin, this man was dressed poorly, his rags and tatters. His eyes were bloodshot, his skin sallow and weak. He wore no jewelry or fineries of any kind, which was not too unusual among the Bedouin, but he had walked there, and Bedouins often travel everywhere by camel, but he walked into this room. And as this old man in the tattered clothing walked in, he was greeted warmly and embraced by the people there. And Thesiger saw that he was right. This was a personage of note. And Thesiger turned to his table companion, who was also a Bedouin, and asked, "Who is he?" And his companion said, "Oh, he's famous," said the man. What is he famous for? Is he a chieftain? He's famous for his generosity. He wasn't a chieftain, but he was a very rich man. And now he has almost nothing. No camel, just a few goats. What happened to his camels? Thesiger asked, for everyone had camels. Was it drought, or did raiders steal them? No, said the man. He has given away to his tribe every last thing he owns, right down to his sandals. But oh my goodness, exclaimed the man. And Thesiger could hear the envy in the man's voice, see it in his eyes. By God, said the man, he is generous. I am not nearly as generous as that old Bedouin, and I suspect I may never be. I know generosity is a virtue. I've been inspired by Jesus telling the young man in the Gospels to sell everything he owns and give the proceeds to the poor, but I always fall well short of these examples. But as I get older, I do understand a little better the envy in the voice of the Bedouin onlooker. I have seen great generosity in my life and been amazed by it. Sometimes people will ask me, "Oh, you're a minister, huh? You must have seen some things." And sometimes I'm asked if what I've learned about human beings has made me cynical. And it's true, as not just a minister, but as a human being, deeply interested in other human beings, I've seen all the usual panoply of human behavior, including all the amazing things and all the ways we fall short. Dishonesty, selfishness, greed, false accusations, people thrown into prison for various misdeeds, abuse, all sorts of terrible stuff. But then I'm far from perfect myself. But even so, I find it hard to be cynical when I reflect on the stunning amount of generosity and kindness. I'll be preaching about kindness at a later sermon, but kindness can be said to be basically a generosity of spirit. I feel the Bedouin man's envy at some of the things that I've seen, some incredible generosity and kindness. Congregations, as we heard in the long haul people reading earlier, are often reservoirs of this generosity and kindness. Someone's always off painting the walls without fanfare, or organizing collections for those in need, or they're off bringing a casserole to someone who has lost someone close to them. People are actively looking for ways to be kind to each other. They really are, and it's an amazing thing. I try to never take that for granted, that spirit of here's a place where people are actively looking for ways to be helpful and useful and kind. And there are thousands of examples like it. And I know it doesn't only happen in religious and spiritual communities. Some of the most astoundingly generous people I've ever met have not been at all interested in religion. And actually, come to mention it, many of the most astoundingly generous people I have met, whether religiously observant or no, have been homeless. Incredible saints who had not a penny to their name and rushed to help someone else in need with what little they had. The Bedouin story is not just a fable, I can assure you. But congregations are notable because without generosity, congregations would simply not exist. We get no funding from the government. It's the separation of church and state, which is a good thing. And though you could argue we provide services, we're not really a business either. We are here because people donate their time, give of their talents, and contribute their money to this shared endeavor. This rather bizarre, rather unique shared endeavor of meaning-making and community and service known as a congregation. This sermon serves as your annual pledge sermon, or as some commonly refer to it, the Sermon on the Amount. It's an old joke, but it's a good one. If you're a member or you've been coming here for a while, I hope you might pledge to give what you can afford toward this congregation. Thank you to all those who have already pledged. If you'd like to pledge, there will be, I believe, a breakout room available after for pledging, and also you can see one of our pledge captains. You want to raise your hand, or anybody who, they can help you make a pledge right here. If you want to think about it before selling the house and giving away everything you own, you can do that. But we would like to know sooner rather than later so we can plan a budget based on that. So time is of the essence. And I know in many ways I'm singing for my own supper here, because you do employ me half-time as your minister, and I'm very grateful for that. It's a great privilege. But I'm only here for one more year, so I'm not primarily thinking about myself. I want you to know that what you have here is special and important, really, truly vital for our world that needs a voice of peace and a place to gather. However wounded or troubled we may be, when we need a little inspiration, a place to be reminded of what a gift it is to be human. You already know how special this place is, and it's not about money primarily. We have a few part-time employees, all of whom work very hard, but most of the work of this congregation is carried out by volunteers, as it always has been. Money does allow you to have this part-time staff that teaches our children and coordinates the music and answers the emails and so on, and it also helps fix things if ever the roof should cave in, as one of them did this autumn, or the boiler breaks. Give us a few years, boiler. As someone once said, ours is a free church, but there's a small charge for the piping. Congregations are about giving. And as I say, kindness is a type of giving, and one of the most, perhaps the most important type of giving of yourself. I titled this service, The Scientific Miracle of Giving. And by scientific, I merely mean that giving is entirely rational. I mean, the incredible Bedouin, generous man may seem beyond us sometimes, but we all want to give, and it makes sense that we give. The opposite of giving would be to not give anything, to hoard all your possessions for all your life. And at first blush, hoarding everything seems like the rational choice from a selfish point of view. Stuff and money and possessions come in handy, after all. And if they come in handy, surely it's better to have more, right? Where this perspective falls down, logically, as well as spiritually, is that human beings are not just individuals, but social. If everyone hoarded absolutely everything, nothing would ever get done. No roads would get built, no trees would get planted, no children would be fed. An economist would tell you that if there are no transactions, there is no economy. Beyond the practicalities, we are social beings. You could hoard every penny until you die, but it won't do any good to you then, and it probably won't make you very happy along the way either. Most of us want to give. It feels good to help other women and men and children, to help our fellow creatures on this earth. I may have mentioned to a few of you, but I'm always struck by another story comes to us via anthropologists, and I hope it's accurate, about a society that every few years moved a giant 30-foot boulder from one place to another, this giant boulder. And they wondered why, because it didn't seem to serve any purpose. You know, it provided shade, but that was about it. And then what the anthropologists discovered was that moving this boulder served the village. It was quite expensive to have this boulder moved, so someone had to call in a lot of favors, probably pay money to some people to have them come, and it was all, you know, second cousins and people in the village, and they would all make a day of it, and they feed one another, because that's how you make a day. And they'd move this boulder from somebody's house to another house, and then that person, somebody else would do it again 2 years later. And what happened was that the gifts of connection were fostered by this strange practice of moving a 30-foot boulder. People knew, reminded of how they needed one another, of how connected they were, and it helped the economy of this little village along by letting them know that they were social beings and that cared for one another. And it's a good one, I think, because it reminds of a lot of the things we do in the congregation. Sometimes we do some amazing things and we do some important work, but sometimes the sense of camaraderie is just as important, if not even more so, the how we do it than the what we do. So if a group of UU Catskills folks is protesting to save the planet, well, it doesn't get more important than that. And yes, the results are incredibly important, literally life and death for our species and others. But I think our climate activists will tell you what gives them the strength to do it again and again and again are the reasons they find it meaningful in the midst of it. The sense of community, the sense of mutual engagement, as well as the fire of commitment and conscience that burns within them. So we do these things for results, but we also do these things because that's who we are. We are a giving people, a social people, a connected people. So that's the scientific part. Biologically, psychologically, rationally, spiritually, are meant to be giving. It's who we are, deep down in our bones. We feel more alive, more grounded, more gloriously human when we are giving of ourselves. As for the miracle of giving, well, I mentioned in the story how potentially the Loaves and Fishes story could be a story about generosity. And it's also a story about congregational potlucks. Right? I know it's been a while since we've had a potluck at this congregation. It's been a long 2 years, and we're entering to hopefully a new phase now. Hurrah! After a long 2 years. But if you've ever been to a potluck of any sort, you know there's a kind of scientific miracle. Because from every individual standpoint, you say, oh, I don't know, I'm making a potato salad. What if there's 28 types of potato salad? And sometimes there is. Some potlucks I've been at those potlucks But most of the time, and even if that happens, there is a sense of abundance, is there not? And not everybody can bring something. Sometimes people just show up and they say, just show up, and they mean it. But everyone brings what they can, even if it's just themselves. And then as you gather together, you realize, you feel it in your body. It's not just looking around it, it's feeling it in the sense with everybody there that it's enough. And that this is a meaningful encounter and that it means something to be together. It's a little like we do every Sunday. We prepare a couple of hymns and some words and silence and all of that. But it's the coming together where we feel that something special is happening in the being together on across all these different homes and in this building and in our religious education building, that we feel something is happening. And this congregation is a place of abundance. And I believe, you've got to have faith, don't you? I believe it is only going to be more so in the years to come. In part because of the spirit and the heritage of this congregation, and in part because it so deeply needs to be. Not to mince words, but these are desperate times. Nationalism and capitalism are fraying at the edges. We're trying to see what they look like in the future. Society's divisions are widening. The drumbeat of war is growing. And the planet is heaving under the stress of our own folly. On the individual level, so many people, so many of us are desperate to know, to be reminded that kindness exists, that humanity can be beautiful, that it is enough to be here now, that our world is an amazing place and life is a freaking miracle, that justice is possible, that hope is tenable, and that they are part of something that is larger than they are and keeps them in its keeping. So we know that need is out there because we feel it ourselves. And the question is, are we going to give it to the world? All of us have that opportunity to do that together. All of us at the congregation are responsible for being bearers of the declaration of the promise, of promoting kindness, promoting peace and justice. These grand notions aren't just for vision statements or for national leaders to declare, they're lived out in our lives. Every time we say a kind word to somebody, every time we show up for our neighbor, every time we give $1 towards places of meaning, we declare in the action that there is something good and worthwhile in this life of ours. You are the message. Fancy words are the window dressing. You are the message. What you do with your time, what you do with your thoughts and intention, with your actions, with your money, with this day, What you do not only says a lot about you, it tells everyone around you that there is beauty and abundance in this life of ours. And together we share this message. That's 6 billion people are sharing it in our own way, and many other of our fellow animals and plants are sharing it as well. The Bedouin man was famous amongst his people, not just because they were grateful for the stuff he gave them. The stuff was great, but he was famous because he demonstrated how noble and beautiful the life of kindness really was. He demonstrated who they were. We've all had people who have shown us by their actions what it means to live a beautiful life. Let's go and do likewise. Giving away something of what we have, and in the giving, feel a connection to something grand and beautiful and good. May it be so. Amen. So now we'll sing our closing hymn. It's song number 301 in the Gray Hymnals. Touch the earth, reach the sky. 301, touch the earth, reach the sky. Please be seated. Isn't it incredible, friends? Isn't it incredible that we're here at all? Isn't it incredible how beautiful this world is? Isn't it incredible how wonderful our fellow people are that we get to share this world is? Will we ever get used to it? Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we shouldn't. And what does it mean to live in a world as grand and as wonderful and as marvelous and as uplifting, as well as challenging as this one is? Maybe it means we be who we are to the utmost, that we stretch a little bit to give what we can, to be who we are, to love one another, to feed the earth, to feed one another, to take care of one another, and live out the beautifulness of this life, because it's incredible that we're here, isn't it? What a day. It's good to be here and good to be here together. Amen. Let us extinguish the chalice with the words we use each week. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you We invite you to get to know someone here today. We don't have coffee yet, so take a stranger out to coffee, right? If